Liz Cheney is disgusted. Michelle Obama is terrified. And Lloyd Austin is AWOL. Stay tuned, everybody. For the best meat you have ever eaten in your life, go to samsbutchershop.com. Enter the coupon code TTT when you check out for a 10% discount. Hello, everybody. This is trailertrashtim. Welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate all of you being here. Let's get right into it. There's a few things I want to cover for you today, and let me get right to it. Marina says, hey, still in Missouri tending to her dad, so remember her in your thoughts and prayers if you would. I would appreciate that. That's really all the update I have for you right now. But there's a few things that are pressing on my mind that I want to get to, and I want to start with this. Lloyd Austin, you may have heard, is the Secretary of Defense for the United States. Lloyd Austin has not been seen or heard from, apparently, by quite a few people. Now, let me ask you a question. Many of you, if not most of you, that are watching me from wherever, have a job. You're still working. You're still in the workforce. And you have to get up every day and, make your coffee and head out to go to work, just like I do, right? What would happen to you if tomorrow morning you were scheduled to be at work at, say, 8 o'clock or whatever, and you just didn't show up? What would happen to you? Would you get by with that? Maybe you would. I don't know. I guess every situation is different. But, after 2 or 3 days, if you didn't show up for your job, I think you'd probably have a problem. Don't you think you'd have a problem? In a normal world, in a normal circumstance, in the workforce, if you don't show up for work, I would venture to say normally, in my working life, with the positions that I've had in my career, if I had a situation where I didn't show up for work, I've worked for Fortune 500 companies. I can't tell you exactly what would have happened, but I think I can confidently say if I didn't show up for work one day, I would at least get the old verbal or written warning or what have you. After 2 or 3 days, if I didn't show up, I'm sure I'd be out of there, and that's normal. I mean, of course, if you own a business and you have some employees, and your employees just don't show up for work, don't call you, don't text you, don't send a homing pigeon, don't do anything. I mean, what are you to assume? Well, Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense, pretty important position, right? Has apparently been in the hospital for like the better part of a week, and his boss didn't know it. His boss being the current occupant of the White House, doddering Joe Biden. Old Joe didn't know that Lloyd wasn't clocking in. Now, I don't know how many people knew that the Secretary of Defense was AWOL. See what I did there? But his boss sure as heck didn't know, because he failed to tell him. Now, here we are in hostile times, militarily speaking, to say the least. Hot spots all over the world, much of it by our own incursions into places we shouldn't be. But whatever the case, this is just almost unfathomable to me that the Secretary of Defense is AWOL and the President of the United States, or I prefer saying the occupant of the White House, doesn't have any idea that his secretary is not on the job. I'm having a hard time processing this. I mean, it's just hard for me to believe. I mean, when did Biden finally discover that his SecDef wasn't at work? Did they have a cabinet meeting or something and one chair was empty and Biden said, where's Lloyd? I mean, what exactly went on here? Of course, we all understand that Biden doesn't know what's going on anyway, of course. And we all also understand Biden's not the one running the country. We get that. But that he didn't even know that Austin wasn't on the job? Who did know? Who else didn't know that Austin was AWOL? I mean, I swear, with this administration, every day is an adventure. Can you imagine if we had got embroiled in a hot war? I'm thinking if you get involved in some real hot flashpoint somewhere in the world that requires the legitimate use of our military, and the president has to go to the situation room or what have you, I'm thinking one of the people he's going to want there would be the Secretary of Defense. Can you just imagine the scenarios? I mean, we have something legitimate break out where we've got to engage our military, and the president is in the situation room and he's wanting to discuss the situation with perhaps the Joint Chiefs of Staff and definitely the Secretary of Defense. And he looks around and says, "Where's Lloyd?" "Oh, well, we don't really know where Lloyd is." You know, Lloyd, buddy, you're not a hot dog vendor on the corner of Pennsylvania Avenue. You know? You're not, with all due respect to fast food workers, you're not a grill man down at McDonald's. You are the Secretary of Defense. Now, it's okay if you're ill and you have to go into the hospital. That's understandable. But to not tell the president or anybody else apparently in his administration that you're incapacitated and can't fulfill the duties of what, is kind of an important job? We are ruled by utter clowns and lunatics. It's every day. Just when you think nothing else these people do will surprise me, you get something like this. I just don't get it. But I've got a conclusion about Lloyd Austin, and it's simply this. Do you remember we've talked about this in the past? When we've had government or the threat of government shutdowns, everybody will be in Washington wringing their hands. We've got to come to an agreement on a continuing resolution to fund the government, because if we don't, we're going to have to shut the government down. And of course, I'm over here going, please make my dreams come true. Shut it down. I'm begging you. And of course, every time we come to this point, the Republicans always cave in, because all they know how to do is bend their knees and cave in, and just keep the charade going. But you recall that during the times of those looming government shutdowns, if they do happen, it's never more than for a few days or something, and nothing major really. There's no real interruptions of anything. And they'll talk about the fact that if we have to shut down the government, we're going to have to send home non-essential workers. You remember we've talked about that if you've been with me for a while. We've talked about the non-essential workers when it comes time to discuss whether we're going to fund a continuing resolution, because if we don't, we're going to shut the government down and we're going to have to send home non-essential workers, which I have maintained begs the question, why do we have non-essential workers? I mean, is it not self-evident if they're non-essential, maybe they shouldn't have that job? Or does that make too much sense? The job that I have is essential. You know how I know it's essential? Because I've got it. But it's true, there's a lot of people working for the federal government that are not essential. I absolutely agree with that. And I want to know why can't we get rid of these people? That's the appeal of Vivek to me, who says on day one he's going to terminate 75% of the bureaucracy. Brother, that makes me stand up and cheer right there. Nobody else is. I don't even know if Ron Paul, for heaven's sakes, ever said that. Pardon me a moment, please. a non-essential employee. Well, the point I'm trying to make about this with regard to Lloyd Austin is this. If the Secretary of Defense, for heaven's sakes, can clock out and go check himself into the hospital for a week and not tell anybody, is it possible the Secretary of Defense is a non-essential employee? I'm just asking. He was AWOL for a week. Isn't that ironic? A guy in the military, AWOL. The Secretary of Defense, no less. I know he's a civilian, but you get the point. Is Lloyd Austin a non-essential worker? Works for me. That's what I'm asking. All right, enough of that clown. Let's move on to our second clown of the day, and that would be good old Liz Cheney, the woman we just can't get rid of. She's like bubble gum on your shoe, and you just keep walking, but you just can't get rid of the bubble gum. You're just stringing it along. Liz Cheney, the neocon extraordinaire, the daughter of disgraced, as far as I'm concerned, former Vice President Dick Cheney, who enriched himself off of war in Halliburton. His daughter served as the lone congressional representative for the state of Wyoming, and of course was defeated last year by Harriet Hageman soundly. Defeated, many assume, rightly so I believe, because she turned on Donald Trump and started attacking him viciously. She turned on the people that were in Washington on January the 6th who had a legitimate right and reason to be there to protest peacefully. Yes, there were some loonies in the crowd. Yes, the FBI was involved. We know this. But for Liz Cheney to hold her sham hearings to do as much damage as she could to Trump and the MAGA movement was disgraceful. And she got turned out of office soundly by Wyoming voters, and good for them. But the headline in the Associated Press reads, Liz Cheney urges New Hampshire primary voters to take a stand against GOP cowardice. Now, there's 2 points that I want to make in this little story. One is what involves Liz Cheney, and the other is, pardon me, the other comment I want to make has to do with the woman who wrote this story, and her name is Holly Raymer. This is a story reported in the Associated Press, and I want you to notice the wording that Holly Raymer uses in this story. Pay close attention not only to the story itself, but how it is worded by Holly Raymer. On a mission to keep former President Donald Trump from returning to the White House, former U.S. Representative Liz Cheney implored New Hampshire voters Friday to use their upcoming presidential primary to send a message to the world. Quote, "Speak for us all," she said. "Tell the world who you are with your vote. Tell them that we are a good and great nation," unquote. Cheney said at Dartmouth College a little over 2 weeks before the January 23rd primary. Quote, "But make sure they know that we do not bend, we do not break, and we do not yield in the defense of our freedom. Show the world that we will defeat the plague of cowardice sweeping through the Republican Party," unquote. I want to come back to the fact that she just called everybody who supports Donald Trump a coward in just a moment, but let me continue with the story. Cheney, Holly Raymer writes, daughter of former Vice President Dick Cheney, had been a leading Republican voice for years. But she parted with many of her colleagues over Trump's false claims of voting fraud and her position as vice chair of the congressional committee that investigated the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Notice that she said Holly Raymer, Holly Raymer. Notice how she wrote this, folks. She said she cited Trump's false claims of voting fraud. Now remember, Holly Raymer is writing for the Associated Press. This is boilerplate stuff from the Associated Press. You get this from them. You get it from the letter networks. They'll use phrases like this: Trump's false claims of voting fraud. How many of you realize that Trump's claims of voting fraud are not false at all? There was voting fraud, Ms. Raymer. There was voting fraud, Associated Press, you news organization who should be, in theory, in pursuit of reporting the truth, which is the opposite of what you actually do. You print lies, you publish lies, you post lies. You insinuate with your reporting that Trump has made, no, you don't insinuate, you come right out and say that Trump made false claims of voting fraud when the truth is the exact opposite, but you don't report that, Associated Press, Holly Raymer. It takes hicks like me out in the sticks of Alabama to call you on your lies and your lack of forthcoming about the truth, which is that there was indeed voting fraud. I hadn't forgot you, Liz Cheney. I'm coming back to you. But I want to get on with what else Holly Raymer said in this report, because there was two things, and I'm looking for it right now. Bear with me, will you? She mentioned the voting fraud. Let's see here. And there was, or the lack of voting fraud, I should say. And of course, the fact of the matter is there was voting fraud in the election. All right, let me just move on with Cheney. The report continues. On Friday, the Supreme Court said it will decide whether Trump can be kept off ballots because of his role in the attack. He had no role in the attack. Another lie from the AP. Cheney said she agrees with those who believe he should be disqualified under a provision of the 14th Amendment, barring some people who engaged in insurrection from holding public office. So it is Liz Cheney in bed with people or entities such as the Associated Press who are puking out this malarkey, this nonsense, that January the 6th was an insurrection, and we all know that it was anything but. I have covered this extensively on my channel, and all of you with any working matter inside your skulls understand January the 6th was not an insurrection, and Liz Cheney, you damn well know it. And so do you, Holly Raymer, or are you just a blithering idiot? All you do is repuke these lies. Oh, there was no voter fraud, and and January the 6th was an insurrection. No, it was not. God, I'm so tired of these people. And Liz Cheney, you are an utter disgrace. Thank God you were turned out of office. Now, please, will you just go away? No, she's not going away. Cheney, who was soundly defeated in her 2022 primary, said she disagrees with... Well, you finally got that right, AP. Said she disagrees with many of Joe Biden's policies, but said conservative Republicans should recognize the threat posed by Donald Trump and the threat posed by Joe Biden are not even remotely similar. Our nation can survive and recover from policy mistakes. We cannot recover from a president willing to torch the Constitution, she said, referring to Trump, to which I say, pot effing kettle, Liz Cheney. Torch the Constitution? What do you think your father did, honey? Donald Trump torched the Constitution, but you didn't? With your sham hearings on January the 6th? All these J6 political prisoners, just a stone's throw from where your hearings are, and you can't raise your voice to defend them. Instead, you're fine with them being in prison in the shadow of the White House. You have the unmitigated gall to say that Trump is torching the Constitution, but with Biden, it's just a policy difference. You see, we just differ on policy. I mean, Biden is completely loyal to the Constitution, right, Liz? There is no problem there. It's not a constitutional problem with Joe Biden, ladies and gentlemen. It's just we just have some policy differences. That's all. Biden, Cheney, Romney, McConnell, Schumer, Pelosi, you know what they all have in common? Everything! Everything! These people are interchangeable. They're all exactly alike. It doesn't matter if they've got a D by their name or an R by their name. They're all frauds. And she has the gall to not only say that our difference with Biden is just over policy, but Trump, he's the one that's torching the Constitution. And your head just spins round backwards. Of all people to say that somebody else has disrespect for the Constitution, Liz Cheney would say that? And she has the gall to say that any of us who supported Donald Trump are cowards. Could it be, Liz Cheney, that perhaps we're not cowards? Maybe unlike you, we're just people who have some principle. Maybe unlike you, we're people who have some scruples. Maybe unlike you, we're people who actually love our country, but we hate what our government is doing to us. Maybe unlike you, we realize that Joe Biden is a threat to our country, and a threat to our Constitution, and a threat to our freedom, and a threat to our safety, and a threat to our borders, and a threat to our liberty. But unlike you, Liz Cheney, it's more than just a policy difference. We're not the cowards, Liz Cheney. You are. You are a disgrace. Now go away. And Holly Raymer, you need to go back to journalism school, sweetheart. All right, one more thing. What do you think? Kiki was sitting beside me. I think I ran her off. Hey, Kiki, you're not a Cheney fan, are you? All right, let's get to one more thing. Good old Michelle My Belle Obama. The headline in various outlets, I'm reading this off of Yahoo News, the headline is the same. The headline reads, Michelle Obama, I am terrified about what could possibly happen in the 2024 election. Well, Michelle, good. I hope you're terrified. I hope that's a good sign for the rest of us who have some sense. Michelle Obama sat down recently to do a podcast interview with a man by the name of Jay Shetty, Shetty. Jay Shetty, never heard of him. He has a podcast called On Purpose, and Michelle Obama recently sat down with him for an interview, and he was asking Michelle about her fears. I couldn't watch the whole thing because I wasn't trying to induce nausea. I mean, so I could have to draw the line somewhere, but I read the text of this, and I did see a clip of it. And Jay Shetty was asking Michelle Obama about her fears. This was a real touchy-feely sit-down, kind of an NPR kind of an interview. And he's asking her about her fears, and she said, I am terrified about what could possibly happen because our leaders matter. Well, you're right about that, Michelle. Who we select, who speaks for us, who holds the bully pulpit, it affects us in ways that sometimes I think people take for granted, the former First Lady said, when asked to name some of the biggest fears keeping her awake. The fact that people think that government, she continued, does it really even do anything? And I'm like, oh my God, does government do everything for us? And we cannot take this democracy for granted. And sometimes I worry that we do. These are the things that keep me up, she said. Oh, Michelle. Michelle Obama is terrified about what could happen in the 2024 election. Interpretation: Michelle Obama is terrified that Trump might win again. Now, I would be terrified if the opposite happened. If somehow the clown we have now got in office again. Or anybody with a D by their name. That's what terrifies me. But it don't terrify Michelle. It terrifies Michelle if Trump would win. Well, you know what? Here's to your terror, Michelle. Here's to your terror, darling. Come election day this November, the next morning, I hope you got no sleep the previous night. I hope that you were just overcome by terror. Because for 8 years in this country, when your husband lorded over us, that pretty much describes how I felt, and a lot of people in this country who still value liberty and freedom and the Constitution, that's how we felt. When we were forced to bend our knee to your husband's God-forsaken, unconstitutional Obamacare, which was made the law of the land with no opposition by the late John McCain, and codified as law by the traitor John Roberts on the Supreme Court. It was your husband, Michelle, who gave us Obamacare and turned the proposition of health care into a nightmare for all of us. It was your husband, Michelle, who just made things worse in America for 8 long years, and we just had to suffer under his rule. And now you people are nothing but phony baloney elites. You live in Martha's Vineyard, where you have wine and cheese, and you worry about things like global warming and the rising tides of the oceans, although you built your home right on the ocean or bought one right on the ocean. You're such hypocrites. You're such hypocrites. You're such phonies. You make rules for everybody else that you don't follow yourself. There on Martha's Vineyard. By the way, how's your ex-chef doing? Been wondering about that. All right, there we have it. Anybody seen Lloyd Austin? If you run across him, you might want to call somebody and let us know where he is. Hey, do me a big favor. Give me a thumbs up for this video. I'd appreciate that. If you have not subscribed to the Trailer Trash Tim channel, I invite you to do so right now. Just hit the old subscription button. Everybody go out there and have a great day. This is Trailer Trash Tim. Give me comments down below. I'd love to hear from you all. Everybody have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.